The stunning claim that the recent violence and attempted land grabs in Hermanus are being incited by the ANC. This after an image was captured from a cell phone belonging to an ANC member of the Provincial Legislature, Dugmore, which they say was an attempt to exploit grievances over land. Well, Dugmore joins us now from our Sea Point studios. And good evening to you, Cameron. Just to set the context of what was in that image, you were saying in a WhatsApp message, and I quote now, "This is a campaign we must lead and drive in terms of our policies. We must also look at well-located private land and consider our actions." That's what you said in that tweet. Now, the context, of course, was a conversation that you were having with your colleague Faiz Jacobs on how you are going to be discussing a decisive campaign for human settlements and agriculture. There it is on our screens at the moment. So that was the WhatsApp. They're saying you're inciting violence and land grabs. Good evening.
Good evening. I think really what's happening here is the DA being very desperate because the entire Hermanus and Zwelishle and Mount Pleasant and Horston communities know very well that despite the fact that the DA has had a land audit actually paid for by the national government to assist with this problem 10 years ago, they have not released any of that land for housing, whether for RDP housing, gap housing, social housing. So their failure to release land has resulted in a situation where the community, not the ANC, the community protested. The ANC had absolutely nothing to do with it. I was actually asked to go there by the provincial leadership yesterday to engage with the community and to try and assist in making sure that in a disciplined and a peaceful way we resolve the problem. And in fact, through our inputs, we now have the full involvement of the National Minister of Human Settlements, Noma Indiam Feketo, Minister Feketo, and we also will be involving the community who elected the committee. And now we're bringing all parties together to actually stabilize and move forward. But essentially what's happening here is sharing a briefing to the provincial secretary around the need. And this is what we are saying as the ANC. We need to look at land audits across every municipality, identify public land that belongs to the national, the province or the city, and in a disciplined and a peaceful way, access those lands, not only for human settlements, but also for integrated social housing, economic activity, and also recreation. And that's a campaign that we will be driving. But we as the ANC condemn any land invasions. We're against those. Our organization, the president, have been very clear about that at this point in time, we are very clear. We act in terms of the law. We act in terms of the constitution. And I think that what is happening here is the DA pointing at this allegation with absolutely no basis. Those that were in the meeting where I was present would know that contributions are made, the proposals are made to actually stabilize the situation. So we will carry on giving leadership, making sure that the protests happen in a disciplined way, that there's no damage to property, because we are very clear. We have a constitution which guides us, we have a law that guides us, and it's clear that no land invasions or land grabs will ever be supported by the ANC. So this is the DA clutching at straws because they know that the mood in a place like Hermanus, Zwelishle, Mount Pleasant, Horston is swinging against them because of the election of our new president, Cyril Ramaphosa, who's giving direction and hope to the country. They are worried, so they obviously must try and throw mud, but it's not going to stick because it's absolutely false that we engineered or planned this. I was giving an update to the provincial secretary.
Mr. Dugmore, I have to come in here. I have to come in and just respond to some of what you've just said. You're talking now about identifying public land, but if you look at that WhatsApp, it specifically talks about looking at privately owned land, and that's part of the DA's contention. In fact, Western Cape DA leader Bonginkosi Madikizela says you were even busing people to those protests to come in and be part of that land grab, quite specifically against ANC official policy. What's your response?
Oh, that's a complete lie. The ANC has not been involved in busing any people. There were 5,000 people in that community marching and having this protest. We did absolutely no busing. And on the issue of private land, you see what the DA doesn't do. They don't quote the full statement that I had released on Facebook talking about the whole issue about land and housing and human settlements. But the reality is that when we look at a place like Hermanus, the city of Cape Town, any other place, we can very clearly say that there is well-located private and public land in all of our municipalities. And the key issue about getting a land audit of public and private land is to look at what is suitable for economic development, what is suitable for human settlements. And there are going to be occasions clearly where public and private land would need to be accessed for that. But in terms of the law and in terms of the current law which governs our country, the Constitution, we have a 1967 Expropriation Act. We all know there's a debate going on in the country about moving towards the issue of expropriation. But this campaign that we're talking about, which they don't quote the full statement that I put on Facebook, is clearly a disciplined, directed and peaceful campaign. What the DA is worried about is that in this community, Hermanus, they have been selling public land to private developers for the last 10 years. Government pays for an audit, they identify the land, the DA goes and sells many pockets of this private land, actually denying the communities of Mount Pleasant, Horston, Zwelihle access to the land. We need to investigate the Skilpoort sale where 65 hectares were sold for 5 million rand to a private developer on certain conditions. And that land is right next to Zwelihle, and some of it can clearly be used. So what we're having here is the DA selling off public land. But what we are saying is that we must look at private and public land, parastatal land, and make decisions according to the law about what land to access for social housing and for other purposes. And there's absolutely nothing wrong, and that's a campaign that we will be driving very clearly as the ANC.
Well, that was the ANC member of the Western Cape Provincial Legislature, Cameron Dugmore. We've seen some concerning reports, of course, out of Hermanus, a library and a police station torched. We'll certainly keep you updated as developments continue to unfold.